Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. Happy you are with us. We are talking about conspiracy theories, misinformation. How does that spread? Why does it spread? And who is more susceptible to maybe believe some of that? Happy to have with us from Vanderbilt, Professor Lisa Fazio, Vanderbilt Psychology professor, joining us via Zoom. And I was looking through all these articles, and they talk about increased perceived control. So again, we're living in this time when we have zero control, it feels like, over so many things. And these conspiracy theories, and sometimes just holding on to misinformation, it gives us a sense of control. Is that right?
Yeah, so one of the reasons you see people often latch on to conspiracy theories is to give themselves some sense of control and control of the situation. So if you're following a conspiracy theory where clues are dropped at different times and you have to go do internet research and try and figure out what the truth is, that action gives you a sense of control over your life and control over what you're doing. And I think that's something that a lot of us are missing right now, is that sense of control. And so that's one thing that conspiracy theories can give to people.
Yeah, and I'm reading this article, I'm looking at this article, which talks about how do we combat this kind of thing. It says increase people's perceived control, so that's what you just said. Another is promote a positive self-image. What is that? I mean, I know what a positive self-image means, but how would that help with dealing with misinformation or conspiracy theories?
I think part of it is helping people realize that society does value them. So a lot of what you find in conspiracy theories is people who are on the fringes or don't feel like their opinions are heard, don't feel like they have a role to play in society as society is currently set up. And so that's one way of trying to combat that, these theories.
And then the other thing here is reduce uncertainty. And we've talked about that. People need more certainty. They need more control so that it helps reduce uncertainty.
Yeah. And I think part of that certainty can be understanding that we don't know the answers yet. So I think it's important for scientists to come out and say, here's what we know for sure. Here's the things that we're still working out. We're trying to figure out what's true, what's not. And here are all the things that we're still working on, and we don't have any idea what's going on. But rather than just saying nothing, or rather than kind of saying something and then contradicting yourself and then correcting it again, I think it's important to be clear. This is what we know is definitely true. These are our best guesses right now, but it might change. And here's just kind of some initial thoughts.
I was really interested in the example you gave of someone whose husband was sick. I think you said had a brain tumor, and she couldn't believe it. The husband was young, and researched all of these things and came up with a reason. Through her research, she could find a reason she could explain the unexplainable. And I don't know
Exactly.
I don't know what she came up with. I could imagine it's something about cell phones or something, whatever. I mean, I've had family members get sick, and you research and you find this one example, and you're like, okay, that's the reason. And for whatever reason, it does make you feel better, but it's probably totally wrong. But what are some other, I'm fascinated by that, some other personal examples that you may be aware of, or some other misinformation that's been out there throughout history, or conspiracy theories. You know, do you have some other kind of real world sort of examples like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, another example of misinformation causing actual real world harms is what happened coming out of Pizzagate a few years ago, where someone again believed in one of these online internet conspiracy theories, kind of the historical roots behind some of the ones that are ongoing now. And so they thought that there was a pedophile ring underneath a pizzeria, and they took their weapons and went there to try and liberate the children. And of course, there was nothing happening at the pizzeria. It was just a normal restaurant. But people who believe this will take real life action to try and save people that they think are in danger. You also saw this with some of the fervor around Black Lives Matter protests and people thinking that Antifa was going to come into their town and hold a big, dangerous rally. And so people showed up armed, ready to defend their towns against groups that never showed up because they weren't real. It was all disinformation that had been planted to try and divide the country.
So some of the things you're talking about are also political, right? And I mean, some of these things can be used and have been throughout history by various people seeking power. And it can, why are some of these things tied to politics?
Yeah, so some of it is foreign governments seeking to destabilize the United States. So if you can get people to fight against each other in the country, then it's less likely that they're going to unite against external foes. And basically you can try and seed dissent and basically a breakdown of society. So that's one of the motivations that people have for putting this disinformation out there, is to cause people to kind of throw their hands up, nothing's working, distrust all the institutions, stop voting, think that kind of nothing matters anymore.
Are you worried we're nearing that?
I'm worried that it's coming. I'm worried that some of these tactics are working. Yeah.
And then again, so it's so important, the way you combat that is to get information from more than one source. And what else? Let's say there's somebody watching, and they have a loved one who is, let's say they have a brother or sister, an older brother or sister in another city, and they are consumed by a conspiracy theory, and they know it's a conspiracy. That it is just kind of outlandish. What can the loved one do for that brother or sister that they know is consumed by something that's outlandish, but that brother or sister feels like it's the most important thing in the world?
Yeah, so there's a few things you can try. One is to send them reliable information, particularly if it's from a source that you know that they trust or at least don't actively hate. That can be really useful. One thing I tell people is that on social media, when you see someone post something that you know is false, that you know is outlandish, it's worth replying to it, not necessarily because you're going to convince the person that you're talking to. They might be too far gone. They might not trust you, believe you, but everyone else who's exposed to that post will now see that correct information in the response. And there's some research studies showing that that can be a really effective way of combating misinformation, where you're kind of helping the onlookers while you're also trying to help the person who posted it.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, at least post, either just say this is not true, or even better, give the reasons why. Many things can be.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's misinformation, how would you go if you're not sure about something? Is there a place you go to find out, okay, well, that is misinformation, or actually that is true?
First thing I do when I see something that I'm not sure about is just throw it in a search engine. Throw the headline, throw some keywords in a search engine and see what pops up. If it's reliable, you'll see like 10 different news organizations all posting about it. If it's not, you'll often see a fact check telling you why it's not true and why it's not true. Or you'll see that this is the only source reporting that, and then maybe you don't want to share it. That's
a red flag. That's a major red flag.
It's a definite red flag. Yeah. And that can be something that you do really quickly. So anytime before I share something, I, number one, make sure that I actually read the article that people are linking to rather than just the headline. And then number two, if it's from a source that I don't recognize, if I'm not sure if it's true or not, throw it in a search engine.
All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk more about this QAnon, because I'm just fascinated by that. If you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We'll take a break. We'll be back right after this.